the ground of all being, what structure of mind reveals about ultimate reality. Hi, I'm Lisa DeLay, and we started this series by asking, why can't science really explain consciousness in a satisfying or coherent way? We looked at why consciousness can't be explained away by material processes alone. We explored what it means to think of mind differently as something fundamental to reality. Now we reach the question that all of this has been circling around. What if mind is fundamental? If consciousness is not a late arriving side effect in a mindless universe of stuff, but something intrinsic to the structure of reality, then what ultimately is mind grounded in? What's really going on? This is where the work and concepts of David Bentley Hart become most elucidative, and for many people, most unexpected. Because the answer, he argues, is not a theological add-on or a leap of faith. It follows directly from taking the phenomenology of mind seriously. So brace yourself. Here is one of the most beautiful and keen observations in all of this kind of thinking. Mind is not just aware. It is always aware of something. Philosophers call it intentionality or aboutness. The mind is always oriented toward an object, toward truth or beauty or goodness or understanding or meaning. And these orientations don't bottom out. The desire for truth is not satisfied by this or that true thing. It reaches toward truth itself, toward an infinite horizon of intelligibility. The longing for beauty isn't quenched by any particular beautiful thing. The love of goodness always points beyond any finite good towards something like goodness itself, goodness with a capital G. The eternal that is immaterial is always with us. This teleological structure, the fact that consciousness is always reaching beyond itself toward an infinite horizon, is not incidental. It is what mind fundamentally is. And if this reaching is not simply frustrated forever, if it is not simply a pointless orientation toward nothing or something mindless, then it implies a real ground on which reality is based. An infinite immaterial reality that consciousness is always already moving toward and in some senses already participating in. Let's explore this idea using the structure of I. When you say I, when you are aware of being yourself, you mean at least two things. There is an individual, I, this particular person with this history, these preferences, this body, this set of memories, and being in the world in a specific way. When saying I, you are aware of the psychological individual. I eat, I walk, I love. But there is also something more primordial than I. The sheer fact of being a perspective at all, of there being an irreducible point of view. This doesn't originate with you as an individual. Your individual self came into being, but the I that knows itself, the awareness that is aware of being aware, this doesn't feel like something you made from nothing or invented. It is more like something you were cooperating with, or something you participate in. Across the world's contemplative traditions for millennia, this recognition appears again and again. For Hindus, it may be Atman is Brahman, meaning the self at its deepest level is identical with ultimate reality. In the Christian mystical tradition, thinkers like Meister Eckhart speak of the spark of the divine in the soul. In German idealism, Hegel's Geist, spirit, is the one act of self-knowing that runs through all consciousness. David Bentley Hart's formulation is incisive and worth understanding. He contends the psychological distinctness of individuals is real, not a construct or coming from mechanical process. There are genuinely different people, different perspectives, different histories. But at its deepest level, there are not different I's. There is one original act of self-awareness in which all conscious beings participate. An act of infinite self-knowing that knows itself in and through finite minds. Is this a God of the gap? No. It's important to pause here and distinguish this argument from what sometimes is called a God of the gaps approach, the idea of invoking God whenever science currently has no explanation, backfilling some ignorance with a tidy but ultimately crude or illogical theological answer. Hart's argument is not about gaps in information. It's about a qualitative difference that no quantity of information could bridge. The solution to the mind problem is not, we don't yet understand how consciousness works, so maybe God did it. He contends that consciousness has a structure that the more carefully we examine it, it keeps pointing beyond any purely naturalistic or mechanical account, not because of what we don't know, but because of what we do know. The laws of information, the semantic structure of language, the teleological reach of desire, the unity of experience, the recursive self-knowledge of awareness, these exceed what mechanical systems can, even in principle, account for. Not because of a deficiency of scientific method, but because of the fundamental difference between mindless things and a mind that is genuinely about something. God, related to the mind, that follows from this reasoning, Hart is careful to note, is not a God among gods, not a very powerful being somewhere in the universe, not an interventionalist deity of popular imagination or religious constructs. This is what the theologians call high theism, the absolute ground of being itself, the infinite act of knowing in which all things participate and from which all contingent things depend. This is not primarily a confession of religious faith, Hart insists. It is a conclusion of phenomenology, of following the structure of mind and life honestly, to see what they disclose. The ancient and medieval understandings of reality, David Bentley Hart argues, are experientially closer to what we actually encounter than the threadbare materialist picture that modernity offers us with most modern philosophical theories. And simply put, they make more sense of more of the reality we actually experience. We began this series with a simple question: what is your mind? And we've arrived somewhere that might feel unexpected, at the threshold of infinite being, at the notion that the little flame of awareness you carry is not by accident of biology or complex material things, but it is a mode of something that has no outside. Something is in and through all things. The question, as Hart frames it, circles back to what do we do with the phenomenon of mind and language and the structure of life? We can try to explain it away, and we'll find every time that the explaining requires and infers exactly what we are trying to eliminate. Or we can follow the evidence more meticulously and without 17th century baggage, and find that the refined older understandings of reality are not primitive mythologies and superstitions, but profound recognitions of something we all are right now, in the middle of and experiencing. Thank you so much for joining me for the ideas in this series. Thank you to David Bentley Hart for saying coherently what I experienced and intuited, but could not find the models and the words to convey. I hope you've enjoyed the series. Please subscribe to the channel and check out the links on the channel to support what I'm doing and share this work.